Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Speak Up Erika podcast. And today our guest is Joyce.
Hello.
Hi, Joyce. Thank you for joining us today.
It's awesome to be here. Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited, but kind of nervous, but it's okay.
Oh, don't be nervous. If you would like, I can ask you a fun question if you would want the
I
people
love
to
fun
get to know.
questions. Hit me.
Okay, awesome. First fun question. If you were to have any superpower, what would it be and why?
I usually say, for some reason I think about this a lot, but my superpower would be teleportation. So I don't have to drive or fly or anything. I can just be somewhere else whenever I want to.
Ooh, that's a good one. I feel like a lot of people say flying, but teleportation
I
is
know,
underrated.
but I feel like that's tiring.
Exactly.
I don't even like running or anything. I don't have that kind of athleticism in me.
It's a lot of energy.
Teleportation's the antithesis of flying, so I'll take that.
That's true. That's a good one.
Thank you.
And then another question. If you were to give one advice to your 17-year-old self, what would it be?
Oh my god.
I know it's a little bit...
Probably it's okay that you don't look like Zac Efron from 17 again. It's okay,
He looked so good as a 17-year-old.
So, I don't think he was 17. Obviously he wasn't in that movie, but that's all I can think about when I hear the words 17 years old. No, probably besides the Zac Efron thing, probably just keep doing stuff that is fun for you, and don't stop just because you think it's childish or whatever. Life's too short. Just keep having fun.
Yeah. No, that's really good advice.
Yeah, but also the Zac Efron thing.
Yeah, I think he was in his 20s when
he had to be I don't even know how old he was when High School Musical happened.
I think he was probably 17 in High School Musical.
Oh
yeah, little baby
Zac Efron.
Aging like fine wine. I heard Seth Rogen say that about him, so
yeah, and Seth Rogen's always right about Zac Efron. Awesome.
So I guess for our topic today, we're going to be talking about trichotillomania. Sorry, did I pronounce
Trichotillomania, one of the longest, hardest to spell. It's I always thought it was such a funny coincidence that the name of this disorder is so long and strenuous, but you and I met in another long and strenuously named thing, our university program.
Yeah.
Which was just as complicated and hard to explain to people, I think.
Oh my gosh, I know. So our program was called ICCIT, so the Institute
of Communication, Culture, Information Technology.
Yeah. So long.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm used to the long names, but I know other people aren't. So Trichotillomania is the full name, but Trich is the short form that most people will refer to it by.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So is it okay? We'll just call it Trich then to make it easier.
Save ourselves some air.
So Joyce, may you tell us what Trich is? If some people may be ignorant and don't know what it is.
For sure. I mean, it's very, very normal to not know what it is. I think a lot of people who do have it, also don't know what it is. So Trich is basically a compulsive disorder that causes a person to pull out their own hair. So that's wherever you have hair, look at your body. If there's hair, if a person has trichotillomania, they'll kind of be predisposed to just compulsively pull it out as kind of a stress relief, but kind of as a stress management system in a way. It's very similar to how people will bite their nails, right? When they're nervous or stressed about something. So nail biting, hair pulling, skin picking, they all kind of fall under an umbrella. And that umbrella term, it's called body focused repetitive behavior. So repetitive behaviors that you do to your body. And hair pulling is one of them. And yeah, a lot of people will like develop it at some point in their life, whether it's like very mild, where some people will pull out like one hair like a year and just kind of not even realize it's happening. And then on the other side of the spectrum, some people will pull to the point where they don't have any more hair, or their hair like stops growing. And yeah, it's a really, really wide spectrum. But it's something that I've like experienced for a really long time, since I was in elementary school. And now I'm on Instagram, and I'm, you know, advocating for mental health and for trichotillomania, and just kind of spreading the news that, hey, it ain't all so bad, and that there's a lot more than what your hair looks like, which is something I didn't believe for a long time as well.
Oh, that's so awesome. I think that a lot of people are connected to hair and beauty as one thing. So that's
yeah.
I
feel like I could write like a dissertation on like beauty standards, like what is femininity, how much of it like lies in the hair for some reason. Yeah, it's pretty wild. Like I feel like even if someone's listening and they don't have like trich, something almost similar is when like a female person like cuts their hair really short. It's kind of like a thrill, and kind of a, you know, you feel conflicted, like, oh my god, like I'm supposed to want to have me.
Yeah. I think when I knew you in university, I would have never guessed as well. Like we just see each other for our personality, I guess, or for who we are, rather than appearance-wise.
Yeah.
Would you be able to tell us like how, I feel like maybe at that point you were really young, you didn't know what was happening? Would that be correct?
That's actually exactly it. So the earliest I could trace, like just from my memory, is like elementary school. And so I didn't know that anything wrong was happening until I was like in high school. So I basically had this disorder happening like unchecked for a whole bunch of years, and then by the time I realized what it was almost like too late to stop it. Because the way I like imagine trichotillomania like happening and existing in my brain, feel free to like stop me if this like doesn't make sense.
No, yeah, go ahead.
It's kind of like you have like the reaction of, okay, I feel stressed over something, and then in that like moment, you know, when I was in elementary school, in that moment the stress made me pull out a hair. And then the next time I was stressed, I would pull out a hair, and the next time I was stressed, I would pull out a hair, and I'm just reinforcing the same like pathway over and over, but I wasn't aware of it yet. So kind of, if you imagine like how much I had reinforced that one connection over the course of a few years, I won't be able to stop in like a day because I just feel like it. It becomes something like really like deeply ingrained in my brain, and something very challenging for anyone who like experiences something like that to stop or like manage.
Because it's a coping mechanism for stress.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess, was there a point where you wanted to seek help for trich? Yeah.
I guess like when I found out what it was, it was it felt like a double-edged sword. So the way I found out about it was I was on Tumblr. Good old Tumblr. I have no idea how I did it or like what happened, but I found some like mental health blog, and then she was talking about like she has this thing where she pulls out her hair, and that was kind of the first point when I realized it. And so on one hand it was good because, you know, I knew I wasn't alone, and I knew that there were people that were like just like me, and that felt very comforting. But I felt like when I found out about it, I almost like, I feel like up until that point, I didn't think anything was wrong with me. So when I see like all these other people talking about like how much they hate their like bald spots, and they hate like how short their hair is, like that kind of told me that I should feel like that too. Like, oh, there is something wrong with me. Let me like let's try to fix this. So yeah, at that point I kind of knew I should like get help somehow, but I was still pretty young. I was like at the beginning of high school, I want to
right?
say.
Yeah, Tumblr days was that time.
Oh my god, we were like, I was like a fetus.
Yeah.
Like what was I gonna do? But one of the first things I actually did do in terms of like getting help was finding a support group, and there is a support group in Toronto. Yeah. And I would like tell my parents I was like going to hang out with my friends, but in reality I was like taking the bus to like go to Toronto.
Yeah.
And go to this like support group.
So how was that? Did you end up sharing with your parents about your trich?
Well, my parents kind of have always known like something was up, but I think something that is kind of an unspoken rule that we just like don't really bring it up.
Okay.
And kind of, like no harm, no foul. If that's the right phrase. But like I feel like in my case, because I think it's different for everybody, the fact that they don't bring it up is actually helpful for me.
Okay.
Because you know, like if someone were to point something out for you like every day, you'd be like, oh, like leave me alone, like let me deal. Yeah, I feel like the fact that they never really bring it up makes me just feel like, oh yeah, there are like other things, you know, they'll point out my grades, they'll point out like they'll roast me for other stuff, you know? But they'll roast me for like not related to my hair, which I kind of appreciate. Yeah. I think like anyone is like self-conscious about something on their body, if it's not something you can fix in like 5 minutes, there's really no point in like pointing it out.
That's true. Yeah.
Like, do you find that?
Do I find that with
yeah, like if you had someone point something out to you like all the time, would that like help you, or would it like not?
So I guess a situation that I can kind of relate is with acne. Like you know it's on your face, and you feel like, oh yeah, people can see it, but I feel like it's mostly in your head, and then I'm the one who usually voices it out. That's like, oh my god, I have this huge pimple on my nose, and then they see it and they're like, oh, I didn't even really notice it, and you're like, oh,
every freaking time. Okay. Oh my god.
Like, maybe it's just me, and maybe it's just me overthinking about.
I really think it like 99% of the time.
Yeah.
It really is like just us. So as like part of my like journey was that I didn't share the fact that like I compulsively pull out my hair. I didn't share that until last year.
Wow.
So, like,
congratulations. That's so awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. But literally up until like 2019, I had told my boyfriend, and I told him after we dated for 2 years.
Wow, yeah.
So I didn't even want to tell him. Like my parents know, and then like one of my close friends know. Yeah. But then I kind of like I had that revelation of like, well, maybe like it is just me like freaking out about it, because I feel like when I quote unquote like came out with my mental health stuff, really nobody had any idea. It was like just me.
Yeah. I think when I knew you in university, I would have never guessed as well. Like we just see each other for our personality, I guess, or for who we are rather than appearance-wise.
Yeah. Like even someone from university asked me, like, wow, remember in like freshman year, like, oh, my acne was so bad. And I was like legitimately trying to picture them and like their face in freshman year, but like I got nothing. I like and if that's how I feel, you know, I think the right people will not like care.
I agree. So when you told your boyfriend, he even like he was like, oh, okay, was like, what was his reaction?
He's the most like chill human person like in this world. I don't know if anything can like, I can tell him I have like a tail and he probably wouldn't even care.
Like, oh, cool.
It's like, oh, sweet. You want boba or what? Like,
let's talk about the real stuff.
Boba, yeah. That's like, oh, what do you want to get from like Cocosville? Yeah, like I had worked up like so much courage and like had a whole like spiel plan. Didn't need any of it. I just told them like, oh, hey, I have this thing. or like I pull up my hair when I get like feel stressed, and you just kind of said, oh, okay, like if you need anything from me, just like let me know. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh,
like,
that's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then like even when I told my friends, it's really no big dealio. Everyone's really got their own stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think like that's really good that you have that support system that they're there for you, and it's like, okay, well, your appearance on this doesn't really matter. That yeah,
that's the thing. I always like I did read about other people's experiences, and
yes,
it's definitely like not always like this.
Yeah,
that's kind of part of what pushed me to like share my story. That I have the conditions, that are like ideal for me to share this, and like why wouldn't I when someone else is having it way worse, and maybe me sharing my story can help that person in like a worse spot where they like get bullied at school, or they have a boyfriend that is not as understanding and like chill and likes bubble tea,
No, I think it's really good that you are sharing your story, because I agree. I think it really will help people and is helping people that have it. Yeah.
Like that's how I feel too with like your like when you came out with your book, and you really focus it on like mental health and your personal experiences. I think like people only get better the more they share.
No, that's true. I agree. So Joyce, for when you released or when you came out, how was it like coming out on social media about it?
I feel like on social media it's like easier than doing it in person. Because that was my like strategy in a way. I wanted to tell people in a way that I couldn't like Uno reverse and like chicken out, change my mind, and just like not tell anyone else. So that's kind of why I went the social media route, like just tell everybody without having a way to like take it all back. And just like deal with the consequences, I guess, if it didn't work out. But it ended up being like the most helpful thing I've done so far in my like mental health journey. Because I feel like even in general for mental health, for me, the more that I like talk about it in like plain language and just like kind of candidly, it's one thing to like talk to a therapist about it or like a professional. It feels like very official. But I feel like when I'm just writing it as like a random Instagram caption, like it feels like very simplified, and it's like, oh, make my problems like not as complicated as like I like to think they are.
It's like liberating almost.
Yeah. And you get it in like the little doses with every like little post.
I think the best part about expressing it on social media is that even people you don't know reach out to you, and they support you and they're there with you too. That's one of the best parts.
A lot, and like it like blows my mind that there are other people that have never talked about their condition with anybody.
If I have a friend who's experiencing trich and doesn't know how to deal with it, what are some advice or some tips that you would give, if that does that make sense?
Okay. I think like
helping out a friend,
the first step kind of thing. I think it's obviously easier said than done, but I really advocate for like reaching out and like talking to someone about it. And like even if you have to go as far as like writing like a script for yourself, talking points, just like try to find somebody that you can trust, whether it's someone in real life, or a family member, or even like me. Like just telling somebody, I think, really unloads like a lot of it, because the thing with like trichotillomania and like trich and hair pulling, it's a lot more than just like the hair, which I think I was really obsessed with, like, oh well, if my hair like grows back and my hair is long, I'm like cured, essentially. That was kind of it was really like tied together with that. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it's like it's mental illness. It's not just like how your hair looks. So I think like reaching out to someone, like as much as you can is really important. And if that's not possible, I'm a big like journaling advocate too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like talking to yourself, you know, putting it down on paper. You could look at it later and be like, oh yeah, she was going through it, but at least you can like see it from like a perspective.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the journaling, because when I'm in some really dark times where my mind isn't in the right place, I tend to journal to let it all out. And then when I look back at it, I was like, whoa, it's kind of crazy, the things that you were thinking at that time, and then you can see how much you've grown from that point of view too. Yeah.
And sometimes you can like find a pattern. Yeah. Which is like, oh my God, kind of fun. Yeah. Like, oh, you can say, oh, I felt like this, and then, you know, I did this after. And if that's happened multiple times, you know, usually like people will say, you know, oh, just like figure out when you pull and then like try to avoid that situation. But it's such like an autopilot thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to catch. Yeah, reach out to anybody and journal.
Yeah. Sure. One of the things that I'm thinking is when people get stressed, they do that thing where they tap their foot. Yeah. Move their foot all the time. Oh God. So it's kind of like one of those.
Imagine trying to just like stop tapping your foot. Yeah. It's like you almost can't. It's your stress reaction, which is okay, you know? It's like, oh, it's just a stress reaction. It's not as like intense as like I used to think it is. That's kind of like a big difference. I see a lot of changes of how I used to think about Trich versus how I think about it now.
How has your perspective of Trich changed from when you were first learning about it till now?
Yeah, I think one of the main things mentioned that like it feels very like hair centric, which obviously it is hair centric because it's like your hair is like physically being affected. Yeah. But I think people tend to put too much emphasis on the hair part of it.
Okay.
And then like ignore like the brain part of it.
Wow, that's true. Yeah.
Like else like would relate. So sometimes there isn't a lot of like research or things to read about Trich, but I find that when I read about eating disorders, I see a lot of like parallel, like
interesting,
like really bad cases of eating disorder where you know your body is like physically affected, and then you're obsessed with like the way your body looks, but you're like people that are dealing with eating disorders don't always have like the intervention to handle the mental part of like the eating disorder, which is really complicated. So I feel like if you just replace like weight and like how your body looks to like hair, if like I see a lot of parallel in that. So the main thing is like I've kind of shifted my focus from, well, I need long hair to be better versus, well, I need my brain to like stabilize for 30 seconds once in a while to like be better. Like I always tell people like that also have Trich that I would rather have a well mind than like long hair any freaking day of the year.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I think that's true, that it may be it's like a misconception that you're so focused on your outer, I guess we're going back to, you're so focused on the outer appearance that it actually goes back into just your mind and how your mind is reacting to these things.
And it's really hard to like move past that because you know the physical part is what you see every day.
Exactly.
So of course you're gonna like notice it and think about it and worry about what other people say about it.
Yeah.
But I think like the mental growth and the mental work is just as important, even though it's invisible. Yeah. I think I wrote in my journal that like you don't see global warming, but you still believe in it. So
oh my gosh, yeah, that's true.
It's like when people say climate change isn't real, it's like, like no, you're wrong. But it's like that's like saying, oh, my mental illness isn't real because I don't see it. It's like, no, you're wrong too. Hit my profanity check.
Okay. No worries.
No, you fool, funny. You are wrong.
There. That's true, yeah, because I think maybe people back then, mental illness wasn't really talked about, right? So they're just like, oh yeah, it doesn't exist, or it's not real, or men can't have mental illnesses.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's so many different stigmas right behind it that they're like, oh, it's just something you're making up, or it's just.
But I think sad. The more I'm like in the like mental health kind of space, and I like read more about other people's experiences, I like it is getting better. There are some people that I've met with Trich that have dealt with it from like they're like in their like 40s and 50s now. They were dealing it with it like in the 70s when like no one knew what like OCD was even. Which is like crazy to think. And now in the support groups we have like 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds who are like so woke. Wow. It's woke and like self-aware. So it's really powerful to see that I think there is a shift. It's kind of a relief.
Definitely. Thank you for listening to part 1 of Talking About Trich with Joyce.
You can listen to part 2 on the next episode of Speak Up with Erika.